Hello. I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace, like water flowing gently through ancient terraces carved into volcanic stone. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return, not urgently but patiently, like taro growing in dark, rich soil, where understanding settles in quietly without needing words, the way water finds its level in each carefully constructed terrace. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated, the way 1,000 small terraces connect to form something larger than themselves. And it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long, lived-in life. The ones that flow like spring water through the channels your ancestors carved. The ones that root themselves deep, like taro in fertile ground. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed, and allow this night to meet you where you are. And now, before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. You're thinking about terraces tonight, about land carved into steps, about water flowing downward, level by level, stone wall by stone wall, about soil held in place by human hands and human intention, about plants growing in the careful geometry of cultivation. Perhaps you've seen them, the Taro terraces of the Society Islands, photographs in magazines or documentaries on television, images of green steps climbing volcanic slopes, water glinting in the sun as it moves through ancient channels, the broad leaves of taro plants catching light, holding rain, breathing in the tropical air. Or perhaps you've been there, stood on those islands, felt the humidity wrap around you like a warm blanket, heard the constant sound of water moving through stone channels carved centuries ago, seen the terraces in person, each one different, each one the same, each one part of a pattern that extends beyond what your eyes can take in. But even if you've never seen them, never traveled to those islands, never stood in the presence of those ancient agricultural systems, you understand them. You understand what they represent because you've built terraces in your own life. You've carved space from difficult terrain. You've directed the flow of your energy and attention. You've planted things and tended them and harvested what grew. Your life is a series of terraces, each one at a different level, each one built upon the one below it, each one requiring maintenance and care and constant attention to the flow of water, the quality of soil, the health of what's growing there. The Taro terraces of the Society Islands are ancient. Some of them have been maintained for over 1,000 years, generation after generation, tending the same plots of land, rebuilding stone walls when they crumble, clearing channels when they clog, planting and harvesting in the rhythm that ancestors established centuries ago. You understand this kind of continuity, this kind of long relationship with something that requires daily attention. You've maintained things across decades. You've rebuilt what crumbled. You've cleared what became blocked. You've continued patterns that were established long before you arrived. Think about the first terrace, the lowest one, the one that catches water first as it flows down from the mountain. Someone had to build that first, had to look at sloping land and imagine it differently, had to see possibility in difficult terrain, had to believe that the work of carving and building and planting would yield something valuable. You were that person once, young and looking at your life as difficult terrain, sloping in directions you didn't choose, shaped by forces beyond your control. But you looked at it and imagined it differently. You saw possibility. You believed the work would yield something valuable. So you started building your first terrace, your first attempt to create something cultivated from something wild, your first effort to direct the flow of your life in an intentional direction. Maybe it was your education, the hours you spent learning, studying, preparing yourself. You carved out space in your life for knowledge. You built walls around your attention so it wouldn't run off in every direction. You channeled your energy toward growth. You planted seeds of understanding and tended them until they matured. Or maybe it was your first job, your first apartment, your first attempt to create stability. You looked at your circumstances and you started building. One stone at a time, one decision at a time, one day of work at a time. You created a terrace where something could grow. The water had to flow to that first terrace before it could flow anywhere else. In the Society Islands, the spring at the top of the mountain feeds everything below. The first terrace receives water directly from the source. It's the beginning of the entire system. Without it, nothing else functions. Your early efforts were like that. The beginning of your entire system, the foundation upon which everything else would be built. You didn't know that then. You were just trying to survive, trying to create something stable, trying to make something grow. But you were building the foundation, the first terrace, the one that would determine the flow of everything that came after. You remember the work of it, the physical effort of building a life. It was hard. It required strength you weren't sure you had. It required persistence that didn't come naturally. It required vision to keep working towards something you couldn't quite see yet. In the Society Islands, building a Taro terrace means moving stone, heavy volcanic rock. You have to place each stone carefully, fit them together so water doesn't leak through gaps, build walls strong enough to hold back tons of wet soil, create something that will last not just for your lifetime but for generations. You moved your own stones, heavy things. You placed them carefully. You built walls around your life to hold things in place. You created something you hoped would last. Some of those stones were education, some were relationships, some were jobs and skills and decisions about where to live and how to spend your days. Each one had a weight. Each one required effort to put in place. Each one mattered to the strength of what you were building. And the soil. You needed good soil. In the Taro terraces, the soil is everything. It needs to be rich in nutrients. It needs to hold water, but not become waterlogged. It needs to support the deep roots of taro plants that will grow there for months before harvest. You cultivated your own soil. You enriched it. You added what was missing. You learned what you needed to learn. You developed qualities that would support growth. You became someone capable of nurturing something beyond yourself. This took time. Soil doesn't become rich overnight. The volcanic stone of the Society Islands breaks down slowly over centuries. Plants grow and die and decompose. Water flows through, carrying minerals. Generations of farmers add what's needed, remove what's harmful, tend the soil like it's alive, because it is alive. You tended your own soil, the substance of who you were becoming. You added experiences. You removed what was harmful when you recognized it. You let time do its work of breaking down what needed to break down and building up what needed to be built. And finally, you planted. In the Taro terraces, planting is done with pieces of the previous harvest. You cut the top off a matured taro plant and replant it. The cycle continues. What was harvested becomes the seed for what grows next. You planted pieces of yourself, your energy, your attention, your love, your effort. You put them into the soil you'd prepared in the terrace you'd built, and you hoped something would grow. Sometimes it did. Sometimes you planted and tended and waited and harvest came. The thing you'd worked toward actually happened. The relationship deepened. The career developed. The home became stable. The life you were building actually started to look like something recognizable, something that worked. You remember the first time you felt successful, the first time you looked at what you'd built and felt proud. The first terrace was producing. Water was flowing through it properly. The soil was supporting life. The plants were growing. You were doing it. You were actually doing it. This feeling was sweet, like the first taste of fresh taro. Starchy and subtle and nourishing. Not flashy, not exciting in an obvious way, but deeply satisfying. The satisfaction of work that yields exactly what it's supposed to yield. The satisfaction of systems functioning as designed. The satisfaction of patience rewarded. But one terrace was never enough. In the Society Islands, a single terrace can't feed a family, can't sustain a community, can't create the abundance that makes life stable and secure. You need multiple terraces. You need a system. You need water flowing from one to the next to the next, each one contributing to the whole. So you built another terrace, above the first one. This one was different. It required different skills. You couldn't just repeat what you'd done before. The terrain was different. The slope was different. The challenges were different. Maybe this was your family. After establishing your career, you built space for relationships, for partnership, for children if you had them. You carved out a new terrace at a different level. You directed water to flow there. You prepared soil. You planted. Or maybe it was a new phase of your career, a promotion, a change, a level of responsibility you hadn't held before. You had to build a terrace to hold it, had to create structure to support this new growth, had to trust that what you'd learned building the first terrace would help you build the second. The second terrace is always harder than the first, because now you're maintaining two terraces simultaneously. You can't abandon the first one. It still needs attention. The water still needs to flow through it properly. The soil still needs care. The plants still need tending. But now you have two, and water flows from one to the other. What happens in the upper terrace affects what happens in the lower one. If you let the upper one deteriorate, it affects everything below it. Dirty water, eroded soil washing down, neglect cascading through the system. You learn this the hard way. You tried to focus entirely on the new terrace, and the old one suffered. Your first achievements started to crumble while you were building something new. The relationship you'd established became strained while you focused on your career. Or your career suffered while you focused on your family. Or your health declined while you focused on everything else. You learned that maintenance is eternal, that building the terrace is only the beginning, that the real work is keeping water flowing properly year after year, that systems require constant attention, that you can't ever fully finish and walk away. In the Society Islands, farmers visit their terraces daily. They check the water flow. They look for leaks in the stone walls. They remove debris from channels. They watch the plants for signs of disease or pest damage. They do small repairs before they become large ones. They stay in relationship with the land they've cultivated. You developed your own daily practices, your own ways of checking the flow of your life, your own maintenance routines. You learned to notice when something was off before it became a crisis. You learned to do small repairs. You learned to stay in relationship with what you'd built. This is wisdom. This is what younger people don't understand yet. They think the work is in the building. They don't realize the work is in the maintaining. They focus on the dramatic act of creating something new, and they don't yet comprehend the patient, daily attention required to keep it functioning. You know better now. You know that the terraces that last for centuries are the ones that receive daily care. That small attentions matter more than grand gestures. That showing up every day is more important than occasional heroic effort. So you showed up. Every day, you checked your terraces, you maintained your systems, you kept water flowing, you tended soil, you watched what was growing and adjusted as needed, and you built more terraces, each one at a different level, each one connected to the others, each one part of a larger system that defined your life. Maybe you built a terrace for your creative work, for the art you made, or the music you played, or the writing you did. A space carved out from the demands of everything else. A place where a different kind of growth could happen. Maybe you built a terrace for your friendships, for the relationships that weren't family, but were still essential, for the connections that fed you in ways family couldn't, for the chosen family you cultivated over years. Maybe you built a terrace for your spiritual life, for whatever practices connected you to something larger than yourself, for the questions you couldn't answer, for the mystery you learned to live with, for the sense of meaning that sustained you through everything else. Each terrace required the same process, looking at your life and seeing possibility in difficult terrain, envisioning what could grow there, gathering stones, building walls, preparing soil, directing water, planting, tending, maintaining, and each terrace affected all the others. Water flowed through the system. What happened at one level influenced what happened at every other level. You were creating an interconnected whole, a life that functioned as a system rather than as isolated parts. This is what maturity looks like. Not individual achievements, not single successes, but a functioning system. Multiple terraces, each one maintained, each one contributing to the others. Water flowing through the whole, creating abundance and stability and the ability to weather difficulty. Because difficulty always comes. In the Society Islands, storms hit the terraces with tremendous force. Heavy rains overwhelm the channels. Strong winds damage the plants. Flooding can wash away soil and even collapse walls. Drought can dry up the springs that feed the entire system. The terraces that survive are the ones built strong enough to handle stress. The ones with stone walls fitted carefully. The ones with proper drainage. The ones tended by farmers who know how to respond to crisis. The ones that are part of a community of terraces. So if one fails, others can compensate. Your life experienced storms. Of course it did. No life escapes difficulty. You faced losses that felt like they would wash away everything you'd built. You faced droughts when resources ran out and you didn't know how you'd continue. You faced floods of responsibility that overwhelmed your capacity. You faced winds that threatened to uproot everything you'd planted. Some of your terraces were damaged. Some of the walls crumbled. Some of the soil washed away. Some of what you'd planted died. The storms were real. The damage was real. The loss was real. But you rebuilt. You gathered stones again. You repaired walls. You redirected water. You replaced soil. You planted again. You continued the work of maintaining what could still function and reconstructing what had failed. This is resilience, not the ability to avoid damage, not some magical protection from difficulty, but the willingness to rebuild. The knowledge that storms will come and terraces will need repair and the work of cultivation never ends. You learn that some damage is permanent. Some walls, once collapsed, can't be rebuilt in quite the same way. Some soil, once washed away, is gone. Some plants, once uprooted, can't be replanted. The storms changed you. They changed what your terraces looked like. They change what could grow there. You carry these changes, these scars in the landscape of your life. Places where the original design had to be altered. Places where you had to adapt. Places where you had to accept that what you'd envisioned couldn't be realized in the way you'd hoped. This is grief, the gap between what you built and what remained after the storms, the difference between what you planted and what survived, the loss of the original vision in the face of reality's harshness. In the Society Islands, some terraces are abandoned. The storms are too strong, the damage too extensive, the farmer too exhausted, The land returns to jungle. The walls crumble completely. The channels clog with vegetation. What was cultivated becomes wild again. You've abandoned terraces too, parts of your life you couldn't maintain, dreams you had to release, relationships that couldn't be repaired, careers that ended, identities that no longer fit. You had to let them return to wilderness. You had to accept that not everything you build will last, that not everything you plant will be harvested. This is perhaps the hardest wisdom, knowing when to rebuild and knowing when to let go. Knowing which terraces are worth the effort of maintenance and which ones need to be released. Knowing that your energy is finite, that you can't maintain everything forever. The choices must be made about what continues and what ends. You made these choices. You prioritized. You kept some terraces functioning while letting others grow over. You directed your water, your limited water, to the places that mattered most. You accepted loss in order to maintain what could still thrive. And you built new terraces on top of the old ones. This is how it works in the Society Islands. The ancient terraces are at the bottom. New ones are built above them, using knowledge passed down, improving on old designs, adapting to changed conditions. Your later terraces were built with more wisdom. You knew by then how to fit stones properly. You knew how to prepare soil. You knew what needed daily attention and what could be checked less often. You knew how to read the signs of trouble before it became disaster. You knew yourself better, knew your capacity, knew your limits. These later terraces were different from your early ones. They reflected different priorities, different values, different understanding of what mattered. They weren't better necessarily, but they were more knowing, more intentional, more aligned with who you'd become through all the years of building and maintaining and surviving storms. Maybe you built a terrace for grandchildren if you have them. A space in your life for a kind of love that's different from parenting, for teaching without the weight of full responsibility, for witnessing new life with the perspective of someone who's lived a long time. Maybe you built a terrace for mentoring, for passing on what you've learned, for helping younger people build their own first terraces, for being the wisdom you wish you'd had access to when you were starting out. Maybe you built a terrace for rest. For the first time in your life, a space that wasn't about productivity, that wasn't about growing something for harvest, that was simply about being, about sitting beside flowing water and watching what grows without constantly intervening. This last kind of terrace is hard to build, because it goes against everything you learned earlier. All those years of effort and striving and building and maintaining taught you that your value comes from what you produce. That rest is earned only after work. That stopping means failing. But the Taro terraces of the Society Islands include spaces that aren't planted. Fallow terraces, resting ground, soil that's being renewed for future planting. These aren't abandoned. They're intentional. They're necessary. They're part of the wisdom of sustainable cultivation. You're learning to let parts of your life lie fallow, to stop producing constantly, to allow renewal without feeling guilty, to understand that rest isn't the opposite of work, but the foundation that makes work sustainable. This is the wisdom of later life. Understanding that you don't have to maintain every terrace at full capacity anymore. That some can rest. That you can rest. That after decades of cultivation, you've earned the right to simply be present with what you've created without constantly trying to improve it or expand it or optimize it. The water still flows through your terraces, through the ones you actively maintain and through the ones resting, and through the ones you've let return to wilderness. The water doesn't judge. It simply flows, finding its path through whatever landscape exists, adapting to changed terrain, continuing its journey from mountain to sea. You are that water, your life force, flowing through the terraces you've built, through the structures you've created, through the landscape you've shaped, still moving, still adapting, still finding your way through whatever terrain your years have created. And you are also the farmer, the one who built the terraces and maintains them and makes choices about where water flows and what gets planted and what needs to be abandoned. The one who knows the system intimately because you created it. The one who shows up daily to do the small work of maintenance that keeps everything functioning. And you are also the land itself, the volcanic stone and rich soil and growing plants. You are what's being cultivated, what's being shaped, what's producing harvest. You are the ground where all of this happens, all of these at once, water and farmer and land, flow and intention and substance, the system and the one maintaining it, and the material it's made from. In the Society Islands, the oldest terraces are known by name. They have histories, stories, lineages of families who've tended them across centuries. These terraces aren't just agricultural plots. They're living records. They hold memory in their stone walls and their soil and the water that's flowed through them for generations upon generations. Your terraces have names too, even if you've never named them aloud. Even if no one else knows the significance of what you've built, you know. Each terrace in your life represents something specific, holds particular memories, contains stories that only you can tell. You think about legacy tonight, about what remains after you're gone, about whether the terraces you've built will be maintained by others or whether they'll be abandoned and returned to wilderness. This question arrives in later life. It's unavoidable. You look at what you've created and you wonder about its future. In the Society Islands, some terraces pass from generation to generation seamlessly. Children grow up helping their parents maintain the walls and channels. They learn by watching and doing. They absorb the knowledge of which stones fit together best, where water tends to pool, what the soil needs in each season. When the parents can no longer do the work, the children continue. The terraces persist. Other terraces are abandoned when the farmer dies. The children have moved to the city. They have different lives, different work, different relationships with the land. The terraces that fed their ancestors for centuries slowly return to jungle. The walls crumble. The channels clog. The taro stops growing. Within a generation, you can barely tell a terrace was there. You wonder which kind yours will be. Will what you've built continue? Will your children or your students or your community maintain the systems you've created? Or will everything slowly dissolve after you're gone, as if you'd never carved these spaces from difficult terrain? The answer is probably both. Some of what you've built will continue. Some will be transformed beyond recognition. Some will be abandoned completely. This is the nature of human effort. We build and maintain, and then we die. And what happens next is beyond our control. This requires acceptance, deep acceptance, the kind that only comes after decades of building and maintaining and watching some things thrive while others fail despite your best efforts. You learn that you can't determine outcomes. You can only do the work. You can only tend your terraces while you're able. What happens after is not your responsibility. But still, you care. Of course you care. You've invested your life in these terraces. You've given your energy and attention and love. You've rebuilt them after storms. You've maintained them through difficulty. They matter to you. Their future matters to you even though you won't be present for it. So you do what the farmers in the Society Islands do. You teach, you share knowledge, you invite others to walk through your terraces with you. You explain how the system works, why each stone is placed where it's placed, how to read the water flow, what signs indicate trouble, how to repair what breaks. You've done this teaching in your own way, maybe formally through your profession, maybe informally through conversations and example, and simply living your life in a way others could witness. You've shared what you've learned. You've offered your wisdom to anyone willing to receive it. Some people listened, some didn't. Some took what you offered and built their own terraces with more skill than you had at their age. Some ignored everything you said and had to learn through their own difficult experience. Some are still learning, still building their first terraces, still figuring out how to direct water and prepare soil and maintain what they're creating. You can't control who listens. You can only offer what you know. You can only be available. You can only model what sustainable cultivation looks like over a lifetime. The rest is up to them. In the Society Islands, there's a practice of communal maintenance. When someone's terrace wall collapses and they don't have the strength to rebuild it alone, neighbors come. They bring stones. They work together. They rebuild the wall stronger than it was. They redirect water. They restore function. No one does this work alone. You've experienced this communal support. Times when your terraces were failing and you didn't have the capacity to maintain them. People showed up. They helped. They brought what you needed. They worked beside you. They shared your burden until you could carry it yourself again. You remember specific moments after your surgery when you couldn't do basic tasks, after your loss when you couldn't think clearly, after your crisis when everything felt impossible. People came. They brought food and time and presence. They helped maintain what you couldn't maintain alone. They kept your terraces functioning until you recovered enough to tend them yourself. This is community. This is what makes survival possible. No one cultivates alone forever. Everyone needs help sometimes. Everyone experiences storms too powerful to weather without support. The terraces that last centuries are maintained by communities, not individuals. You've also been the neighbor who shows up. You've helped rebuild other people's walls. You've brought stones. You've directed water. You've tended terraces that weren't yours because the person who built them needed support. This is reciprocity. This is how systems larger than any individual are maintained across time. The water that flows through your terraces came from somewhere. In the Society Islands, it originates in mountain springs. Rainwater seeps into volcanic rock and emerges cold and clear, flowing downward through gravity's pull, feeding terrace after terrace, eventually reaching the ocean. The water doesn't belong to any single terrace. It flows through all of them. It's shared. Your life has been fed by sources you didn't create. Knowledge passed down from ancestors. Support from people who loved you. Opportunities created by historical circumstances beyond your control. Culture and language and tools and infrastructure built by previous generations. You didn't create any of this. It was flowing before you arrived. You simply directed it through your terraces, and it will continue flowing after you're gone. This is humility. Understanding that what you've built, while real and valuable, is only possible because of everything that came before. You're not the source. You're a channel. You're a temporary steward. You're one farmer in a long line of farmers tending land that will outlast you. The volcanic islands themselves are temporary. They rise from the ocean floor through volcanic activity. They grow and evolve. Then erosion begins. Slowly, over millions of years, the mountains wear down. The islands shrink. Eventually, they sink back beneath the waves. Even the land itself is temporary. Even mountains die. This perspective changes everything. If islands are temporary, then terraces are certainly temporary, and lives are brief flickers. You're here for a moment, you build and tend, and then you're gone. This isn't sad. It's simply true. It's the nature of existence in time. Knowing this makes the work more precious, not less. Knowing your terraces are temporary makes maintaining them more meaningful, not meaningless. You tend them, not because they'll last forever, but because right now they support life. Right now they produce harvest. Right now they function. This moment is enough. This moment is everything. You settle deeper into your bed now. The metaphor is complete. You understand. Your life has been a series of terraces carved from difficult terrain. You've directed water, prepared soil, planted, tended, harvested, maintained, rebuilt, adapted, learned. You've done the work of cultivation across decades. Some terraces are still producing. Some are resting. Some are abandoned. Some are being tended by others now. This is exactly as it should be. This is the natural progression of a life fully lived. The taro growing in the terraces of the Society Islands is ancient. The same species has been cultivated for thousands of years, generation after generation, planting pieces of the last harvest. The genetic line continuing unbroken. The plants carrying forward something older than any individual farmer or terrace or even island. What you've cultivated carries forward too. Not genetically necessarily, though perhaps in children or grandchildren, but in other ways, in ideas you've shared, in people you've influenced, in systems you've helped create. In beauty, you've added to the world. In suffering, you've reduced. In the particular way you've directed your water through your particular terrain. This continues. It flows forward, not unchanged, but recognizable, like water that flows through your terraces and then continues downward to the sea, becoming part of something larger, evaporating, returning as rain, flowing through mountains again. The cycle endless and transforming, and somehow the same water and somehow completely new water all at once. You are that water. What you've created flows forward and becomes part of something you can't see or control. It transforms. It combines with other flows. It takes directions you never imagined. But something continues. Some essence of your cultivation persists beyond your individual presence. This is enough. This is more than enough. You don't need monuments. You don't need fame. You don't need to be remembered by names centuries from now. You only need to have done the work, to have built your terraces, to have maintained them as well as you could, to have shared your harvest, to have taught what you learned, to have been one farmer in the long succession of farmers tending this earth. The work is complete enough. Not perfect. Never perfect. There are things you would do differently if you could return to your younger self. Stones you would place more carefully. Walls you would build stronger. Water you would direct differently. But you can't return. You can only be present with what is. With the terraces as they exist now, shaped by all your choices, perfect in their imperfection. You forgive yourself now for what you didn't know, for the mistakes you made, for the terraces that failed, for the times you neglected maintenance, for the storms you didn't prepare for the harvests that disappointed, for all of it. You were learning. You were doing your best with what you knew. You were building in difficult terrain with limited resources and no instruction manual. The farmers in the Society Islands make mistakes too. They build walls that collapse. They plant at wrong times. They misread the weather. They struggle with diseases they don't understand. But they continue. They learn. They adapt. They rebuild. This is the practice of cultivation. Not perfection, not mastery. Just continued engagement. Just showing up again and again to do the work. You've shown up for decades, through difficulty and ease, through success and failure, through joy and grief. You've continued the work of cultivation. You've tended your terraces. This is the achievement. Not what you produced, not what you accomplished, but that you stayed engaged, that you kept showing up, that you continued. Now you're tired, really tired. The kind of tired that comes from decades of maintenance, from years of showing up, from the accumulated weight of all those days of checking water flow and repairing walls and tending what's growing. You're ready to rest, ready to let others do the maintaining, ready to be the fallow terrace for a while. This is allowed. This is necessary. After decades of cultivation, rest isn't laziness. It's wisdom. It's honoring your limits. It's accepting that you've done enough, that you are enough, that whatever happens now with your terraces is unfolding exactly as it should. You breathe slowly now, deep breaths. You feel the weight of your body on the bed, the weight of the covers over you, the weight of all these years, all this effort, all this cultivation. It's been heavy, carrying this much life. but you've carried it. You've made it to this moment, this quiet night, this space of rest. In the Society Islands, at the end of day, farmers leave their terraces and return home. They've done the work they can do today. The water continues flowing through the night without them. The Taro continues growing in darkness. The terraces function without human presence. The system maintains itself during the hours when the farmer sleeps. Your terraces are functioning without your constant supervision now. The systems you've built have their own momentum. The people you've influenced are making their own choices. The work you've done is having effects you can't see. Everything is continuing while you rest. You can let go. You can stop monitoring. You can simply be here, breathing, present, allowing. The night embraces you now. The darkness is gentle. It's not empty, but full of everything that's ever been cultivated, full of all the farmers who've ever tended terraces, full of all the water that's ever flowed through stone channels, full of all the harvests and all the storms and all the patient daily maintenance that makes life possible. You're part of this. You've always been part of this. One farmer among countless others, one life among billions, one set of terraces on one island in a vast ocean. This could feel diminishing. Instead, it feels connecting. You're not alone. You've never been alone. You're part of something that extends far beyond your individual existence. The volcanic mountains of the Society Islands emerged from the ocean millions of years ago. They'll erode back into the ocean millions of years from now. In between, brief human lives come and go, building and tending and dying. The islands don't notice. The ocean doesn't care. But the lives matter. The cultivation matters. The terraces matter. Not because they're permanent, but because they're present. You're present right now. In this bed. In this body. In this moment of rest after a lifetime of work. This presence is sacred. This moment is complete. Nothing else needs to happen. Nothing else needs to be achieved. You can simply be here. Simply breathe. Simply allow this night to hold you. The Taro terraces are quiet at night. The water still flows, but softly. The plants still grow, but imperceptibly. Everything continues in darkness, in rest, in the peaceful maintenance that requires no conscious effort. Growth happens in sleep. Healing happens in rest. Renewal happens in the fallow time. You're in your fallow time now, not abandoned, not neglected, but intentionally resting, allowing your soil to renew, allowing your energy to restore, allowing yourself to simply be, rather than constantly produce. This is the wisdom harvest. This is what decades of cultivation teach. That rest is sacred, that being matters as much as doing, that you've earned this peace. Let your thoughts slow now, like water finding its level in the lowest terrace. Let your breathing deepen, like roots going down into rich soil. Let your body relax like stone walls that have stood for centuries, strong enough, solid enough, requiring nothing more than what they already are. The terraces will be there tomorrow. They'll need checking then, but not now. Now is for rest. Now is for sleep. Now is for letting go of maintenance and monitoring and simply trusting that everything is continuing as it should. You've been a good farmer. You've tended your terraces well. You've done the work. You've built and maintained and adapted and persisted. You've weathered storms. You've celebrated harvests. You've shared what you've grown. You've taught what you've learned. You've been present with the land of your life. This is enough. You are enough. The water flows on without your attention. The plants grow without your supervision. The system functions in darkness while you rest. Everything is continuing. Everything is okay. You can sleep now. You can release your grip. You can stop carrying the weight. You can simply be here, breathing, resting, allowing this night to hold you completely. In the Society Islands, the stars appear after sunset, brilliant against the dark sky. The same stars ancient farmers navigated by. The same stars that witnessed the first terraces being built. The same stars that will shine long after the last terrace returns to jungle. Stars that don't care about human effort, but somehow make it feel meaningful anyway. Beautiful, connected to something vast and old and continuing. You're under those stars now in your mind, lying in a terrace at night, the stone walls solid beside you, the sound of water flowing through channels, the broad leaves of taro plants rustling slightly in the evening breeze, the earth solid beneath you, the sky infinite above you. You're held between earth and heaven, between effort and rest, between doing and being, between life lived and life releasing. This is where you are. This is who you are. Farmer and water and land, builder and flow and substance, all of it. None of it. Simply present, simply breathing, simply here in this moment that contains every moment you've ever lived and every moment yet to come. Let sleep find you now, like water finding its path through ancient channels. Let dreams arrive like rain falling on volcanic mountains. Let rest embrace you like rich soil holding strong roots. Let peace settle over you like the weight of covers pulled up by loving hands. You're safe here. You're home. You've arrived at the place you've been building toward all along. Not a destination, not an achievement. Just this moment, this breath, this rest, this gentle releasing into sleep and darkness and trust that everything is exactly as it should be. The terraces will be there tomorrow. The water will still flow. The taro will still grow. But tonight, you rest. Tonight, you let go. Tonight, you allow yourself to be held by everything you've created and everything that created you. Tonight, you simply are. Breathe slowly now. Feel your body heavy and relaxed. Notice how still the room has become, how quiet the night is, how peaceful this moment feels. You've earned this peace. You've cultivated it across a lifetime. It's yours now. It belongs to you. Take it. Accept it. Let it fill you completely. The work is done for today. The maintenance can wait. The building can wait. Everything can wait. Right now, there's only this. Only rest. Only the gentle dissolution of thought into dream. Only the slow descent into sleep that heals and renews and prepares you for whatever comes next. You're a farmer, resting after a long day in the terraces. Your water flowing toward the ocean. Your land being renewed in darkness. You're all of this and none of this. You're simply here, simply breathing, simply allowing. The fires die down, the stories settle, and the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. Good night. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now is time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes, breathe, and let sleep find you.